Thank you so much for that generous introduction. My name is Arman. I am here to talk about domestic violence, and it is not a nice topic. But before I do get stuck into my presentation, I want to thank each and every one of you for giving me the opportunity, and thank President David for allowing me to share my experiences and my message with you. Now, as I did say, domestic violence is not a nice topic, and if I may, I would like to bring some balance to my presentation and start off with a joke. And if it's a bad joke, then Commissioner Stevens can just march me out of here. And if you do know the punchline, please keep it to yourselves. So a ship sailing along with a captain and his sailors. One of the sailors comes along and says, "Captain, we've got one enemy ship approaching." He says, "One enemy ship? That's okay. Get all the cannons ready and bring me my red shirt." So brings him his red shirt. The enemy ship approaches. They exchange fire. They manage to sink this enemy ship. And the sailor comes along and says, "Captain, what was that red shirt for?" He says, "Just in case, if I was bleeding, I don't want my men to know and lose faith." He goes, "Fair enough." A few hours later, that same sailor comes along and says, "Captain, we've got about 20 enemy ships approaching." He says, 20 enemy ships? That's okay. Get all the cannons ready and bring me my brown pants." I hope that was appropriate. I know we're all having lunch, but... Now, I'm standing here speaking and probably talking and looking a little bit silly, but what I want to do is I want to make you guys look silly just like me. So if I can, I'll get everyone to jump on board with this exercise. I want you to get your index finger up. With your other hand, have a bit of a play around with it. Now, you can break it if you want, but please don't cause any damage. Get 4 fingers, have a bit of a play around with that. You can probably do a little bit of damage, but a little bit more sturdy. Now get your fist. Try to do some damage to this. Can't do anything, can you? Bear with me, there's a message at the end. So I work in the design and construction sector. I don't do any work in the domestic violence sector other than, I guess, my involvement that has been, that's been by default. I've really just been put in this sector because of my experiences and I guess what I've experienced and what I've seen. I don't have any professional credentials. I'm not a social worker. I'm not a victimologist, a psychologist, or anything like that. But I did grow up in a very violent house, and I spent just over 20 years in our family home, where both my sisters, my mother, and I walked away with a lot of physical scars. Now, each physical scar is a small episode of how we were disciplined or how we were treated in our family home. But I guess the thing that a lot of people forget is the emotional scars and the psychological scars. And I can tell you, all of those scars put together can tell you one hell of a story. So as you can imagine, violence was a normal part of our everyday lives. It was quite normal to have abuse and tension in the house. And it's sad to say, but it was abnormal not to have any abusive behavior in our household. And as a young man, when I did witness this violence, I unintentionally started taking that on board. I started learning it. And the reason I say that is because sometime later, in my later teens, I actually realized that what I've been learning and what I've been witnessing is not right, and I had to unlearn a lot of these things. And I guess the saying goes, monkey see, monkey do. And at that age, your brain is just like a sponge, so you can really absorb everything that goes on around you. And I guess being the only boy in the family, I had my dad to look up to. And so when I saw him treat women the way that he did, when I saw him resolve conflict the way that he did, that's what I thought was the normal way, and that's what I thought was meant to be done. But little did I know that my family home was infected with a disease, a social disease, and a killer disease. This thing called family or domestic violence. And if I was to break this down, this domestic violence or family violence to you, it would be that you imagine a pyramid or a triangle. We've got bottom of the triangle that would, I guess, that would have emotional, psychological, financial abuse. That's really the foundation of domestic and family violence. And what I am saying is purely my own personal perspective. Now, let's move up one. Middle of this triangle, I would probably put threats to harm, threats to kill, physical abuse, actual physical violence. And if we do move one up, the very top of this pyramid would be murder. The act of killing, which unfortunately costs almost 2 Australian women their lives every week. Speaking of statistics, here's another one. 30% of girls over the age of 15 here in this country experience some form of domestic violence. Now, going back to that pyramid where you have emotional, financial, psychological abuse, right through to murder, 30%. And if you look around the room and you just pick out 1 out of every 3 women here, now all of a sudden you're putting faces and you're putting human beings to that statistic. In my family home, I had 2 amazing girls, my sisters, and 1 amazing woman, my mum. And unfortunately, 100% of that female population in my family home experienced more than 1 form of abuse in that DV spectrum, that domestic violence spectrum that I spoke about. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. I have been talking about this disease that has been affecting a large number of us, and it has been killing a large number of Australian women. But I haven't really spoken of the solution. And I guess if I was to put out one immediate solution, that would be that if you see something or if you hear something, then please do something or say something. But when I do say that, in terms of intervention, that's a whole new topic in itself. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but please be mindful of 2 things if you are planning on intervening. First is being mindful of your own well-being and your own safety, and the second is the well-being of that victim, because it's all well and good to stop and intervene, but think about the situation and think about that couple who are arguing once you do leave that situation and once you do leave them. So, you can see that each and every one of us plays a vital role in addressing this issue, be it curing this social disease or preventing it from happening in the first place. And I guess regardless of what you do and who you are, just remember that you are a role model and you do have younger people looking up to you. Now, I did say those hand gestures, there's going to be a message behind it, and that's this. 1 finger is you as an individual. 4, you can probably say a group, maybe a table. This fist can do some damage. This is this entire room. And I guess if I was to give you one final message, it would be this, that they say, if you want to go fast, go alone as an individual. But if you want to go far, go together as a team. Because it is a long way to go to cure and to prevent this disease from killing our loved ones. Now, I am open to questions if there is time, and if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. And let me just say that I've been cross-examined by the best lawyers, so there's nothing that you can ask me that's going to offend me. I guess it was, in a way it was easy because I looked at my mum and One particular scenario that comes to mind, an argument escalated. My dad quite literally dragged my mum by the hair and threw her through a window. Now, when you see someone that you love and respect so much, my mum, that is, when I saw her get treated like that, I thought that's not right. That's not right to treat any human being, yet alone someone that you're supposed to love and someone that you're supposed to care for. So straight away, I thought, well, that's no way to resolve any conflict. And I guess, it was moments like that made me realize what I have been exposed to and what I have been learning is not right. Yes?
With everything you've done so far, where do you see the future going?
The future in terms of this space here? Well, I guess we've started the conversation. It's been 2-3 years or so that I've been doing this sort of work, and we have been able to put this topic in the public domain. So I would say we're off to a start. And I guess the first step to resolving any issue is acknowledging its existence. So I guess it's a start, and we just have to keep going the way we have been.
Thank you for your talk. It's lovely to hear. As someone else who also came from a very violent family, just wondering your thoughts on how much of it starts and ends with education, and by education I mean not just schooling education, but also cultural education.
Mm-hmm. Good question. In terms of education, I'll tell you this, my dad was a trained solicitor. He was a very smart man, very intelligent, very charming. But I guess in terms of, well, I guess if you can call it cultural education, I would, well, I guess let's look at it this way. My dad obviously grew up overseas, and sure, domestic violence is not illegal over there. It is frowned upon, but it's not illegal. I think it really comes down to what you see in your family, because I know that he grew up in a violent home himself. But at the same time, I don't necessarily excuse that, because then does that mean that I should be mimicking what he's done? So I would say, yeah, the family, and I guess, the influences that do surround you have a big part to play. But at the end of the day, well, you have your own choices. You can either make the right choice or the wrong choice.
Thank you. And I actually was going to ask exactly the same question, but the question really I have is to do with obviously there must be a cultural aspect to it, which is very strong and stronger than the bond you have with the mother, because in some of the countries where this is accepted as a culturally, everyone can escort the mother, and everyone is seeing their mother treated that way. So there's got to be something a little bit more, I think, than just that connection that allowed you to disconnect from that. And I think that's what we need to nurture and sort of try to utilize to change the culture of wrong being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I've been asked this question a fair bit in terms of I guess the culture, but how would you look at that? So would you say would you sort of look at it in this aspect? Would you say because people are from a different cultural background that it happens in their communities or in their homes more often? So then, would you want to look at I guess the so-called Australian families and I guess what's normal and accepted here?
What I'm trying to say is maybe that sometimes the environment around a child or children or child, it's almost stronger than that bond you have with your mom. But I suppose in that environment, you feel like you want to stick to what everyone else tells you to do, rather than what your family is telling you to do. So maybe being in Australia, in your case, was a really important.
Of course it was. Yes, of course it was. Yeah.
So it's like, how can we encourage that within Australia and other aspects of that community, so that takes place more, and even bring it back in those countries where it's still happening? What can we do to improve that?
Well, I guess in saying that, we probably rely on our community leaders to do a fair bit within their own communities, and I guess being in Australia, you got to accept the rules, whatever they may be. As I said, back home, domestic violence was not illegal; it was frowned upon. But at the same time, if you were excuse this phrase, but if you were beating your wife behind closed doors, then it was a personal business. It was a personal matter. Whereas now the sort of conversations that we are having, we're saying that it actually is not a personal matter. It is a matter of human right violation and safety. And I guess the conversation has been put in public domain. So it's a matter for everyone to be worried about, and for everyone to be a part of that conversation.
In regards to your pyramid and the base level, which is the emotional and social aspect of this disease that you're talking about, how do you see psychological intervention happening at that stage before it moves to ultimately the top of the pyramid? That's a very delicate stage. What's your experiences in that area, and could you kind of into the room as far as rather direct intervention? How important the assistant in that area? As far as when it just starts, how do we stop it when it just starts?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I guess if I can just quickly put this in, I usually say prevention before intervention. So really try to prevent it from happening in the first place. But I guess if it does happen, that there are programs and there is assistance out there, but it's really a matter of getting the perpetrator on board and getting them to seek that assistance. It's tough. It's a fragile and sensitive, I guess, topic to talk about. But I see that psychological intervention as a good tool, because you want to try and I guess suppress that or stop that psychological abuse or any other form of abuse that is the foundation of this wide spectrum of violence. And I guess if you can stop it there, and if you can intervene there, I'm sure that you'll be able to stop it there and then, and it won't go any further.
One more question here and one more there. Arman, I don't want to impose too much on your personal space, but I'm inspired. I find you inspirational.
Thank you.
And in situations talking about DV and other issues, we tend to use expressions like, don't worry, kids are resilient and it'll be okay. You've been through a hell of a lot, to hell and back. You mentioned the legal travails that you've gone through, and we've seen in the media. Can I ask what sustains you? What actually sustains you and gets you up each day and keeps you going and keeps you motivated? Is it a faith? Is it a mission? What is it?
My mum's memories, if I can tell you that, that's the only thing that really kept us going. It was, I guess the loss was so sudden that you wake up and everything is quite different. There's an empty seat at the table. The person's not there anymore. The laughter, the jokes, the company is not there anymore. But I guess we surrounded ourselves with photos of her, and we constantly reminded ourselves that this is what she wanted, and I guess she knew that leaving that abusive home was best for us, the kids, and so that's really what gave us the energy, and that's what kept us going. From one court battle to another, from one case to another, and it was not to mention everything else that we were facing. So homelessness, poverty, isolation, because the community didn't want anything to do with us. So I guess everything that we did face, we really just stuck together, my sisters and I, and we knew that this is what my mum wanted, and her memory is really the only thing that kept us going.
This will be the last question.
Thank you very much. I think you're the most amazing word of the South Australia.
Thank you.
I suppose as a woman, I wonder how your sisters are.
How my sisters are? They are tough cookies, especially the younger one. She puts me to shame. My older sister was very close to my mum. She was there on the night when the incident took place, and I guess she did find it quite difficult. But as I did say, we stuck together and we did what we could, and we got through it all. And I guess same with the younger one. She's I had never seen a child grief before, so it was quite heartbreaking for me because she didn't try to mask her emotions. She didn't try to, act and look tough. She probably cried herself to sleep for about a month or so, hugging one of my mum's pieces of clothing, and every time I saw that, it broke my heart. But like I said, she grieved in her own way. We grieved in our own way, and we stuck together, and we got through it.